The email you forgot could be changing your life without you even realizing it. You read the message and felt certain you would answer it a little later. Hours quietly became days until the email completely vanished from memory. It feels careless, but psychology suggests something very different is happening. Have you ever remembered an important email only after it was too late? If that feels painfully familiar, you are far from being the only man. Researchers have found that memory often fails after attention quietly moves on. What seems like forgetting may actually begin long before memory gets involved. In this video, you will discover why men forget emails so easily, and the final reason may completely change how you judge your own mind. Most men believe forgetting an email means they simply have a bad memory. But the truth begins much earlier than the moment the message disappears. The instant you finish reading, your brain quietly creates a dangerous illusion. It mistakes understanding the email for actually completing the task it contains. Psychologists call this an intention without execution, and it fools millions every day. You think I will reply after this meeting or after I finish one more task. That tiny promise feels so convincing your brain stops treating it as urgent. Then another notification steals your attention before your reply ever begins. Hours later, your mind remembers dozens of other things, but not that message. The email never truly vanished because your memory was weak or damaged. It simply lost the competition for your limited attention and mental energy. The busiest minds often create the longest invisible list of unfinished intentions. That is why productive men sometimes forget the messages that matter most. But this only explains how an email is forgotten, not why certain ones disappear forever. The next reason reveals the hidden force your brain rarely lets you notice. The next reason has far less to do with memory than most men ever imagine. Your brain was never designed to carry hundreds of unfinished digital conversations at once. Every unread email, every meeting, and every decision quietly compete for the same attention. Psychologists call this cognitive load, and it grows heavier without making a sound. The more responsibilities you carry, the harder your working memory must constantly fight. Instead of storing every task, your brain begins choosing what feels most urgent right now. Important emails often lose because they seem safe enough to answer a little later. Ironically, that feeling of having plenty of time is exactly what makes them disappear. The message slowly sinks beneath newer problems until it becomes almost impossible to recall. Then, one small reminder suddenly brings the entire forgotten conversation back in seconds. This proves the memory was never truly erased, only buried beneath constant mental activity. Many intelligent men mistake this overload for poor memory when it is actually overloaded attention. The modern world rewards constant switching, even though the brain pays a hidden price for it. But one type of email is forgotten far more often than all the others for a surprising reason. And once you understand why, you may never look at your inbox the same way again. Surprisingly, the easiest emails to forget are often the ones that matter to you the most. A simple reply feels easy until the message asks you to make an uncomfortable decision. Some emails require difficult conversations, honest answers, or responsibilities you cannot avoid. Without realizing it, your brain quietly delays what creates even the smallest emotional tension. Psychologists describe this as avoidance working beneath conscious awareness rather than laziness. You never decide to ignore the email because your mind simply keeps postponing the moment. Each delay feels harmless because tomorrow always seems like a better time to respond. Days pass and the message slowly disappears beneath newer notifications and fresh obligations. When you finally remember it, guilt often arrives long before your reply ever does. Many men blame weak memory when the real cause was hidden emotional resistance all along. The brain protects short-term comfort even when it creates bigger problems later. That is why forgetting can sometimes reveal more about emotions than intelligence itself. Understanding this pattern removes shame because the problem becomes visible instead of mysterious. But modern email habits make this psychological trap even stronger than most people realize. And the next reason explains why your own routine may be training your brain to forget. Most men believe checking their inbox often makes them more organized and productive. Ironically, that habit can quietly train the brain to forget even more important emails. You open a message while standing in line, walking outside, or between two busy tasks. Your brain reads the information, but never receives the chance to take real action. Seconds later, another notification pulls your attention towards something completely different. The unfinished email remains trapped inside your mind without ever becoming a completed task. Psychologists have found that interruptions break the mental chain needed for future recall. The more often this happens, the more your brain trusts memory instead of reliable systems. That trust slowly becomes one of the biggest reasons important replies never get written. Highly productive men rarely depend on memory because they know attention is always limited. Instead, they build simple habits that remove the need to remember every small obligation. External reminders protect the mind from carrying more than it was designed to handle. Real organization begins when systems replace promises you make only to yourself. That is why forgetting emails says less about memory than it does about daily habits. But the final truth changes the meaning of this behavior in a way few men expect. The biggest mistake men make is believing remembering everything is a sign of intelligence. Psychology suggests that attention has limits no matter how capable or disciplined you become. Your brain constantly chooses what deserves energy and what can safely wait until later. The problem is that later often becomes a place where important emails quietly disappear. Forgetting does not always mean you cared less than someone else about replying. Sometimes it simply means your mind was protecting itself from constant overload. That is why thoughtful men often feel guilty for mistakes they never intended to make. They remember the person immediately after the opportunity has already passed them by. The painful part is knowing the silence never reflected how much they truly cared. Psychologists call this the gap between intention and visible behavior in everyday life. Other people only experience your silence because they cannot see your original intention. Over time, that invisible gap can slowly reshape trust friendships and professional relationships. Understanding this changes the goal from having perfect memory to building better systems. Because lasting reliability comes from supporting your attention instead of testing your memory. And the final realization explains why this small habit can quietly transform your entire life. The truth is, you rarely forget emails because you are careless or unintelligent. More often you forget because attention quietly reaches its natural human limits. The strongest minds are not the ones that remember absolutely everything every day. They are the ones that understand memory works best with the right systems. Once you stop blaming yourself, you can finally start working with your brain instead of against it. A single habit today may save opportunities, relationships, and years of unnecessary regret. Perhaps the email you almost forgot is not really about your memory at all. Perhaps it is teaching you how your mind has been working all along. Have you ever forgotten an email that later changed the course of your day or your life? Subscribe for more psychology videos that reveal the hidden patterns behind human behavior.